Hello there. I can't tell you how much I've really looked forward to being here, and thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to participate in TEDx. I think TED has an amazing reputation, and really like the fact that it's storytelling, and that's what we're all doing here. Today I'm going to take you on a little bit more of a personal journey, though. A journey in how I discovered my passion and also how I built my business around it, or built a business around it. And I'll also talk a lot about network and how my network also grew, developed, and supported me along the way. But let's start from the beginning. And this is a little bit funny, because this is a bar in New York. In this bar, I met the first Norwegian I ever met in my life. Yeah, it was on that sofa there. And this is true. It really seriously was on that sofa. And this is really when another kind of passion took hold. Yeah? And what happened after that was even funnier. Who would have thought that somebody from New York State, and as you can hear, I am American, went from 19.5 million to 4.7 million. Norway, New York, big difference. But there were some more subtle differences, too. Another one was the sheer diversity in New York. It's more unusual if you're not ethnic something in New York. But there was also 8.3 million people just in the city of New York. Then we go to Norway. Wow. Or here, this is Oslo, actually. 500,000. And it wasn't that diversity that I was used to. A lot of the same. What was the first thing I did, though? I decided I needed to get an education. In fact, that was actually my demand. I was not going to move to a foreign country and leave this phenomenal career that I had unless I could do the same and have another phenomenal career or get my MBA. Now, lesson number one, got to be careful of what you wish for. 2 weeks later, and this is true, 2 weeks later, they opened the very first English-speaking MBA in Norway. I thought, wow, this was pretty amazing. 2 weeks later, I applied, and I think it was a month later, here I was in Norway. And it was a wonderful start, and definitely the best way to get acclimated into a new country. But it was by far easy. This was 1989, 2% immigrants in Norway. People stared at me. You don't stare at a New Yorker. You really don't. And I wouldn't recommend doing it if you go to New York either. And there were lots of times that I didn't really know how to respond. Yeah. One of the stories that I love to tell is when one Saturday, and mind you, I was 26 years old. Okay, so it was a Saturday. I had my sweatpants on, and I went to a very upscale, very nice women's clothing store. And I was looking around. I had some money. I was going to go to a big party. It didn't take me very long to realize that somebody's following me. The salesperson is following me everywhere I go. What is going on here? And I realized she thinks I'm going to steal something. What is this? Yeah, I'm getting a little angry, looking over and kind of playing with her a little bit. And finally, she stops me and she says, "Can I help you?" And it wasn't the nice "Can I help you?" It was "Can I help you?" And I got a little nervous because it didn't really speak Norwegian, and I think that sort of emphasized her that, she thought, aha, I got her. And I opened my mouth and I said, "I'm really sorry I don't speak Norwegian, but I'm just looking." And she goes, "Oh, you're American. Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." I'm wondering, what is wrong with this woman? And, "Oh my God, I love New York. I was just there. We go there all the time. Oh, you're so lucky you're from New York." And I'm standing there thinking to myself, how did I go from being a thief to this child's best friend? Yeah? In the space of 5 minutes. And it really made me reflect as she's babbling on. I'm thinking in my head, she made a hell of a lot of assumptions, didn't she? She assumed because I had some African blood in me that I was African and would steal from her store. Yeah? She bought into all the stereotypes that exist about Africans that are not always true. She prejudged me. Yeah? And she obviously discriminated against me in a very overt way. And this is something that I had to deal with being in Norway. In New York, I was one of many. Yeah? There are many African American and other ethnic people with ethnic backgrounds that are succeeding and doing things, but I was sort of this oddity in Oslo. And this is what started me off on a tremendous curiosity for diversity. And I say curiosity because I didn't really know what it was. I mean, this was like going back to the 60s, yeah? People asked me questions that you don't ask New Yorkers. And I don't even think you ask people, to the point where, do I get tan? What is this, yeah? To other really stupid questions that I could spend a half a day telling you about. But I really got tired of listening to other people's reflections on their single stories. Africans are like this, Americans are like this, Pakistanis that came to Norway are like this, and so on and so forth. And it pissed me off. Yeah, I gave quite a few people the finger walking down Karl Johan, and then I realized I can't do that. I can't get into arguments with everybody. But I had this urge to educate and to advocate. One of the first things I did was join an organization called the Association of International Professional Businesswomen. It's a horrifying name. But there were other women just like me, yeah? Women that I could relate to. And it was such an important place for me to land. When I was there, I also started on my first research. Yeah? I was an MBA and really didn't think I would end up doing some research, but somebody asked me a damn good question. What's the status of international or immigrant women in Norway? Damn good question, don't know. I'll do a little report on it, find a researcher, and there I was. Got a lot of money from Innovation Norway, and we did a research project called Hidden Assets that discovered that it takes 5 times longer for women of immigrant background to use their competency. Not really something that was a surprise, but it was then documented. And there I was off for diversity. If I look at my network, which unfortunately you can't see too much on the top, it was really very much focused around me. I was in the core. And then there was obviously my boyfriend and his friends or his family, some of the other people in my MBA, in addition to some of my other American friends. And then I was lucky. My career started to take off. But oof, my first job. And there's nothing wrong with a co-op, but I didn't work in the store. I was actually building displays. I had the highest grade point average in my MBA, and I was the last person to get a job. It took me a year and a half. Definitely partially because I didn't speak Norwegian very well, but no one was really willing to take a chance on me. And these guys just felt sorry for me. So I would drive a car around, and I got to see Norway, so I like to look at it in a positive way. And I only did it for about 2.5 months. And then I got my real first big chance, and that was at Alcatel Telecom. I was hired to be the sales manager for the Baltics, yeah, which was really very cool. And this ended up really being the start of a very international career. Within a very short period of time, we won a huge contract. Within 3 years, I was promoted to country senior manager and actually lived in Lithuania. And I was reflecting a little bit with some of the girls in the back room. Living in Lithuania in itself was actually quite interesting because before I went there the first time, I was actually warned that they're so racist. Watch out. And I thought, oh gosh, what am I going to do? So I called my dad, what am I going to do? Just be yourself. What can go wrong? When I arrived in Lithuania, I don't think I'll ever forget it, people started taking pictures of me like I was a celebrity, yeah? So it goes a little to say, it's also sort of in your own head. But anyway, the international career, Norway, Lithuania, my boyfriend, who ended up being the husband, was living in Paris, so we were just flying all over the place. It was wonderful. And my network expanded, beyond belief, because I was also an expat, yeah? The 2 other additions in my life were the best things that ever happened to me are my 2 kids, Diedrich and Matthias, and this is an adorable picture of them, but they're older now, and they get a little angry that I always use the old pictures of them. They're 17 and 14. But when you have kids, your network expands exponentially, yeah? Because suddenly, you get to know other people that have kids, and they have husbands, and you're brought into a totally another sphere. Not only that, but also you become friends with the friends of their friends, and friends from school, and so on. Wasn't only at Alcatel, I also went to another company called Thales. It was defense communications. Here I went up a notch. Here I was the divisional director, and I had responsibility for 40 people. And that naturally brought me into a network with sitting on boards in Norway, women on boards, big thing, and I love that ride, yeah. 2 board positions I had, one at the Women's University and also Simrad Optronics, gave me another network of investors and other very high-level business people, and it was a lot of fun. But also that brewing of diversity, that curiosity still kept kicking in because I got really frustrated at the media picture. Because if you saw immigrants in the media, it was also, and they were criminals, and they're cheating our system, and they don't speak Norwegian, and they don't integrate. But I knew, especially because I was in that organization, especially because I'd done that research, that that wasn't true. And I wanted to really nuance the picture. So I started my first project in diversity called Top 10. And in Top 10, what we do is we look and find the top 10 immigrants each year. And we very simply promote them. We take great pictures of them and we get them in the newspaper. 5 pages in the newspaper to really try to crush some of those stereotypes and really inject some positive stories. And I did this when I was the director of customer service and support at Tallest. But after that, and I had that 40-year crisis that we were also talking about, because then I'm thinking, what am I doing with my life? I know what my passion is. I know what keeps me up at night, you know, and that's that I got to make the world a better place. Yeah. So I did something really strange. I went to work at the Integration and Diversity Directorate. Yeah. This is in the public sector. Now, can you imagine a New Yorker going from New York to Oslo from a private sector to the public sector? It was really weird, but I was responsible for almost all of the integration programs, and it was the most intellectual experience I've ever had. But it was somebody in my network that also told me, Lisa, you ain't a bureaucrat, and you will not be a bureaucrat, yeah? So maybe it's time you do something different. At this stage, my network just went crazy, yeah? It was in different countries, yeah? It was my experience from Alcatel, it was my experience from Tallest. Now I had a tremendous network in the public sector. It was through my kids' friends, who some of them happened to be very big-time investors. So I suddenly was sitting on a hell of a lot of network competence here. And I used it, yeah? 2 of the guys in my network who were husbands of some of my best friends, they helped me establish what is now Leadership Foundation. And very quickly, what is Leadership Foundation? It's a consulting company and think tank focused on diversity. Diversity is at the core. We do research, consultancy, and coaching, networks, dialogues, lots of projects. And to say it this way, a lot of fun. But something funny happened very early in the start, is that another person in my network said, Lisa, Democrats abroad, the chair, the guy who's currently chair is going to be moving back to the States. You should think about that, yeah? That could put you out there in a different way, and it would be good for your image. And I thought, that's not really how I work, but I'm passionate Democrat, yeah? So what happened? I ended up going into the organization within very short period of time, also became chair, yeah? And then this man comes on the scene. Oof. And that has been a phenomenal ride, because suddenly the media looks at me and says, Obama, Lisa, ooh, we want her, yeah? Been on the media, on TV entirely too many times, radio, now they use me to talk about everything because I can speak Norwegian and relatively fluently. I was petrified in the beginning, you know, I can give a speech, but on national TV. But it worked. I enjoyed it. And it's also through my network, and you can imagine what that did to my network. But let me tell you a little bit about Leadership Foundation quickly, the projects that we do, because then you'll really understand what I've done with this crazy passion that is just still bubbles in me. First is Top 10. I still have that project. Next year it will be 10 years of Top 10, which I find pretty phenomenal. So we now almost have 100 immigrants that are really phenomenal in Norway that we have promoted through the media, in addition to Frank and Martin that are here, who have gotten the youth leader. I went from that to promoting artists, thinking, why not do an art exhibit with immigrant artists, not only from Norway, but from the Nordics. I've had it in Norway and in Sweden, and also had a Nordic dialogue. One of the groups in Norway, or actually in the Nordics, that are probably the most marginalized if we look at immigrant population are people with Somali background. They've arrived relatively recently in the Nordics. Obviously, there's issues with language. They're Muslim, they're black, they have hijab, some of the women. We have a tremendous project that we did because a doctor came up to me who wasn't able to get a job and said, Lisa, we got to do something for the kids. And there we started an amazing project focused on telling positive stories of Somalians. We also go into the community. We're doing mentoring programs. We're doing courses. One of the most important things we're doing in that project is also the establishment of the Nordic Somali Youth Summit. We've had one in Norway, one in Sweden. We're planning already for the next one in Copenhagen. Just powerful stories of, and positive stories of what Somalians have accomplished in the Nordics. Boards formed for internationals, trying to get people with immigrant background in boards. We talk about women getting in boards, but what about that international competence? We've done that quite successfully together with a very good friend of mine in my network who had that concept, and we're going to be doing more of it. Catalyst is a project that I'm working on, and we should be launching it in February, and here we're going to have a program that will be coaching and mentoring for immigrant youth. That's my passion, yeah? To see a problem, design a project around it, get funding, and run and do it. Couldn't do that in the government, but I can do it now. Also sort of dragged into consulting in general, because I've got the experience from the private sector and doing quite a bit of strategic development there. Let me try to wrap it up and summarize. And one is the importance of networking. And I think you've seen on my slides, and I've said it all the time, it's just sort of developed naturally for me, yeah? And it's been part of my business, yeah? Part of my business is going out and talking to people, and that's what I think networking in the right context is. But it's also made my business a hell of a lot of fun. One of my extremely good friends, who I met through another one when I was on the board of the Women's University, we keep quite close in touch. She dragged me to one of her company events, and at this company event, I met a famous rapper. And I go up to him and I said, I think you need to be in the Nordic Somali Youth Summit and not only sponsor it, sing a song, and help me in some workshops. And he said, you know what, I think I will. That was the most phenomenal Nordic Somali Youth Summit we've ever had with this very well-known rapper. So it feeds on itself. For me, networking is extremely natural, as maybe it is for Americans. I don't know, but I don't have a problem in approaching it and talking to people, and I'll come a little bit back to that. But now you can see my network is just crazy, yeah? I have a great network in the Somali community. I even know artists all over the place, yeah? In Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. Even know the guys that have recently opened some of the very cool photography museums. The public authorities, I've also known people in EU. I've established Leadership Foundation in Sweden. It's amazing where my network has taken me from very simple steps and a very simple origin. To kind of wrap up, I think there's 3 points, and it's kind of funny because my first point is relative to networking, and I think I'd really say there, it's really to be curious, isn't it? It's to not to go into a situation, especially in a networking situation, and think, I got to talk to you, or I got to talk to you. It's sort of going up to someone and just asking who they are. Yeah, it's with that approach, I think that one is much more successful in networking. In fact, maybe I'm a natural networker because I can remember even when I was 2 years old, my mother had to have a string on me. You know, those strings you had for kids, because I was all over the place. And I would always go up to people and just say, hi, my name is Lisa, what's your name? And she was like, Lisa, this is so embarrassing, you know? So maybe that curiosity that we have as kids, we need to continue as adults and stop thinking of networking as a target and a focus. The other one is to be yourself. I think a lot of people think that they have to be a certain way. They have to approach people in a certain style. And I think when one just sort of relaxes and is oneself, networking becomes more natural. And the last one really is, guys, find your passion. I build a business on my passion for diversity. I'm not a millionaire, but I will be one day. But I have just landed, you know? It is just absolutely amazing when you find exactly what you're supposed to do, yeah? What makes you get up and run every morning, even if you don't make $1 million. That's when life really begins. So find your passion. Be curious. Be yourself. Thanks.